All right, so welcome to Building an Attitude of Gratitude. This is such an important topic, and we don't just talk about the gratitude approach to life in November. We talk about it all throughout the year. And so I like to tell you that gratitude is not just for November, it's not just for Thanksgiving, but it's really a mindset and an approach that we should build into our everyday lives. Because when we have gratitude, we start to see some real health and wellness benefits. And it's something that we want to encourage you to think about on a daily basis. My name is Abby Horton. I'm an assistant professor in the Capstone College of Nursing here at UA, and it is an absolute privilege to get to spend some of my time with you as your wellbeing wellness class educator. I am a registered nurse, a certified health and life coach, a wellbeing ambassador for the Honors College, and my contact information is here. It's Abby.Horton at ua.edu. If you ever need to reach out, have a question or something that you'd like to connect with me about, please feel free to do so. I know sometimes questions come up after we've had the presentation, and so please feel free to reach out if you do have a question or feedback. We'd like to, before we start our content today, we'd like to really talk to you about the Move Spring Challenge and promote that for you all. It's called the Grateful Spread. It starts November 14th and it runs through the 20th. And this Move Spring is our activity-focused app that really helps you be more mindful and aware of your movement. And we're also incorporating some things like holiday eating and the practice of gratitude into this movement challenge. And so please feel free to take an opportunity to look at that. Wellness and Work Life is offering some wonderful wellbeing programming this year, and we want you to be the beneficiary of that. So you can go to wellness.ua.edu with the kind of /move spring, and you can check out more information there. So our goals for today are to really discuss the importance of gratitude and the impact of gratitude, to talk about how we can really begin to cultivate an attitude of gratitude in our everyday lives, and to learn specific strategies that are going to develop and support a gratitude practice. So I like to talk to you about controlling what you can control. Most of my presentations now has the slide in it because I think it's so foundational to everything we want to do in terms of health and wellness. So when we think about controlling things in terms of, our everyday lives, our stressors, our health, our well-being, we often think about things that we can't control. We'll say, oh, well, I can't do that because. And that's really giving our power away. It's giving our power away to circumstances. It's giving our power away to other people. It's giving our power away where we can't really fully step into who we are meant to be as people, as humans, because we're not taking the accountability for how we respond to things. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we think about the goal of gratitude, the goal isn't to get rid of all of our negative thoughts, all of our negative feelings, because that's really impossible. The goal is to change our response to them. And that's what I want you to think about when we think about cultivating gratitude, because often people will say the reason that they don't feel gratitude or that they're not really grateful for something is because there are other things that aren't so happy, that aren't so exciting or easily as, appreciated. And so we let that distract us from the good things in our lives and the things that we can feel appreciative of and the things we can be grateful about. And so I once heard a well-known speaker, she was talking about our responsibility. And she was talking about when someone says, this is your responsibility, it often is interchanged with it's your fault. And fault and responsibility are not the same thing. And so she was talking about when she was working through some life stressors and some traumas and things, that her coach really walked her through the two words, response and ability, that you have the ability to choose your response. So responsibility, taking responsibility for your attitude, is not about that you're to blame or you're at fault for your circumstances, but it's really you taking 100% responsibility for your response to the situation. And so she went on to say that when you take 100% responsibility, then you are fully stepping into the control and power to be able to change your life and your circumstances. And I found that to be really impactful and something that I really want to share with you, because when you do step in and you take 100% responsibility for what's going on in your life, then you're able to control the 100% that you can control, which is your attitude and your effort. So don't worry about the things that you can't control. When you look at this remote, it's the things that are things that you can really choose. Your attitude, your actions, how you respond to people, what you eat, what you don't eat, who you follow, who you unfollow, how you react to things, the boundaries that you set, how you speak to yourself, how you speak to others. Those are the things that are within your control. And then in this last image, it's a Venn diagram, which I'm a fan of, and it shows you where the things that matter and the things you control, where those two things overlap is where you should spend your focus, your time, and your attention. And so I want that to be the foundation that we start out with, because it's so important that we get our mindset in a good, healthy place, so that when we talk about some of these things that like gratitude and how we practice gratitude, we can come from that place of an abundance mindset. And we'll talk more about that. So gratitude, anyone can have gratitude. Gratitude is the quality of being thankful and grateful. It's a readiness to show appreciation for and return kindness to someone. It can happen anywhere at any time. And it usually happens because you start to have a sense or a feeling of gratefulness. And usually it's something that's spontaneous. And how do you express it? So I would like for you to think about, when you feel gratitude, when you think, oh, that was really nice of my spouse or my partner to, fix a cup of coffee for me this morning, or, oh, it was really nice for that stranger to hold the door. Do you actually take time to say thank you? Do you actually express that gratitude? And a lot of times we do, but a lot of times we don't. And when we think about relationships, when we think about communication, a lot of times we have unmet expectations of what we think someone else should be doing for us. And we might think about, we've expressed, gratitude for them. We've done these things, but have we? Have we just thought it silently and kept it to ourselves? That's something I want you to think about. So some myths around gratitude. One myth, and this is a very common one, is that gratitude is just a naive form of positive thinking. That, if you're positive all the time, you must not really be, that bright or that intelligent, or maybe you're just uninformed or unaware. Because if you were, informed, aware, intelligent, all of those things, you wouldn't be able to maintain that level of positive thinking. It's kind of the positive Pollyanna syndrome that we think about. And we're not talking about, when we're thinking of gratitude, we're not talking about toxic positivity. The idea that we're supposed to be positive 24/7, 365 days a year. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having a positive mindset. Even though we acknowledge that there are things going on in our world, in our lives, that aren't happy, that aren't so positive, we're choosing to have a positive mindset anyway. And so I think that it's something that's really, very much a part of our culture. If we, choose to adopt that, is that we can be both aware and positive at the same time, because we do have this practice of gratitude. The other myth is myth 2, that gratitude is not possible or even appropriate in the midst of suffering. So in the midst of adversity and suffering, we shouldn't be grateful. We shouldn't be happy. We shouldn't be positive, because for some people that feels like that's a sign of disrespect. It feels inappropriate to be happy in the face of other people's suffering. And certainly over the last, 2 years with COVID-19, that has been a collective event that we've really had to think about, if we've not been impacted, by the world's events, which I would say most of us have, but others have been more impacted, certainly. It is not hit us all equally. Then how appropriate is it to be grateful? How appropriate is it to share our joy and our positivity? And what I would say is, and for those of you who don't know me, I've had a lot of challenges. over the last 10 or 15 years, personally with health concerns and different things in my life that have been challenging. And what I can tell you from someone who has been there, and who's been through the suffering and adversity and challenges, is that what I needed most when other people, would reach out to me, I needed them to be grateful for the lives that they had. I needed them to be positive. I needed to see that there was hope and optimism still in the world, even when I wasn't feeling like that was true of my situation. And so I would say that for most people I've talked to, and I've been a nurse for over a decade, most people want you to be grateful, even if they are suffering, even if they are having adversity and challenges. And so I hope that helps you, for those of you who may be wondering about myth 2. So then, what is the importance of gratitude? We often think about just doing, three things we're grateful for and writing those down and, kind of treating it as something to do on our to-do list. We're going to do that in the morning or do that in the evening, and we've done our gratitude practice, right? We make it kind of a thing to do on our to-do list. But gratitude is really more about improving our feeling of well-being and happiness through the spontaneity and kind of the unplanned act of expressing gratitude. It's the moment where you pull up to the drive-through and someone's paid for your order, and maybe you pass it forward. It's the unexpected person holding the door for you, particularly if your hands are full and you really needed the help. It's the little extra sticky note that someone leaves you and tells you thank you for doing a good job. It's those little recognitions that are unexpected and those feelings of gratitude that pop up that are so important to our well-being. It can make our relationships and our connections stronger. It can enhance our confidence when we express gratitude. It does help to adjust our mindset when we're feeling overwhelmed, or we're feeling like our mindset is not in a healthy place. It can highlight our strengths, and gratitude can really help heal ourselves when we're going through the adversities and the suffering, the struggles that we mentioned earlier. So it does help us think differently too, because when we look for the good, our brains are really hardwired to look for what we're thinking about. So if we're thinking about things we're grateful for, we're going to see more good. If we're thinking about things that are troublesome or that are stressful, we're going to see those things. And so it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways, because our brains are just hardwired to look for patterns. And so we want our pattern that the brain is looking for to be one of gratitude and one of positivity. So the impact of gratitude, gratitude is both a skill and a practice. It's a skill that you develop by practicing gratitude. So I want you to think about when you've practiced gratitude in a really intentional way. According to Dr. Robert A. Emmons, he is the world's leading expert on gratitude. And he talks about gratitude gives us the strength of character to make life better, not only for ourselves, but also for others. And so I think that's important when we think about how we can make a difference in our lives. That's an important thing. But when we think about the impacts that gratitude and showing people how to model gratitude, that can have an even more lasting impact and an exponential impact. So gratitude is a process. When we feel grateful, that is one step, but the expressing of the gratitude is really what completes that cycle. And so when you recognize that you have something to feel grateful for, that's sometimes where we stop. We think the thought, but then we don't say anything. We think it's nice that they held the door or the elevator. We think that it's nice that they left us a note, but then do we express that gratitude for them? Do we show our thanks? Do we show our appreciation? Do we demonstrate that same generosity of spirit to ourselves, to them, to others? Do we write thank you notes? Do we say thank you? And I think that's something that we all struggle with. Gratitude is a practice. I think this is something that we really want to start to cultivate on a daily basis. So not that we, are required to write down 3 things every day, but get in the habit of looking for something to be grateful for. If you want to write it down, I think that's really helpful to solidify that as a habit and as a part of your routine. But maybe just start by looking for something to be grateful for today. So this is a 30 days of gratitude prompt. So today might be a person I'm glad to have in my life. So I want y'all to think about, is there someone that you're glad to have in your life? Is it a spouse? Is it a family member? Is it a child? Is it a coworker? Think about reaching out to that person today and sharing why you're grateful for them, why you're glad to have them in your life. It might be something like a favorite song. Do you have a favorite song? You probably do. Do you know why it's your favorite? It's probably relating to some memory. Maybe you have a good memory of hearing that song or playing that song. That's something that you could think about. You know, you're not going to be able to reach out to someone unless you share that memory with another person, but maybe you could write down, you know, in a journal or in your app phone. You know, you could just put notes app and you could put gratitude and you could write down why you love that song. Those are some different things that you can do to start to cultivate that practice of gratitude. But what I want to say is that you don't want to make gratitude a chore. You don't want to make it something to add to your to-do list and that you dread, because that's really going to negate the benefit of doing the gratitude practice. So journal, thank someone, show appreciation, maybe write and mail an actual thank you note, use snail mail. That would be a great thing. Look for the good, notice the helpers. You know, I think that's so important. Mr. Rogers always said that his mother told him as a child to look for the helpers. And then he became one of our iconic helpers on TV for decades. And so the little small seeds that we start to plant, even though we're beyond childhood, we still have a lot of seeds that we can be planting and watering and growing in our lives. And we want to make sure that part of that is planting seeds of gratitude. Repeat gratitude affirmations. I think those can be very powerful. Do random acts of kindness, create a gratitude jar, all things that you can start to do that are free and that are easy, and you know, something that you can do in a few minutes but can make a huge impact on your life. So as I mentioned, don't make it a chore. It doesn't need to be something that is expensive. It doesn't need to be something that you purchase. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Gratitude is best done when it's simple, and I say mostly spontaneous, fun, and free, because there are times where you do want to intentionally think about expressing gratitude. We usually do this around November during the Thanksgiving time. There are so many, you know, 30-day challenges that are geared toward practicing gratitude in November, and I think that's amazing. But I want to really emphasize that we want to be doing this all year long. We want to really make sure that we're staying in tune with why we should feel grateful, even though we may have some things that aren't so happy in our lives. So some roadblocks to gratitude are things like stress and overwhelm and life circumstances, external factors that we don't have control over. We can have mindset challenges. Certainly things that, you know, impact our mindset could be our mood and our health, our personality. Some of us just have different types of personalities that are more geared toward expressing gratitude or having an interest in that. And then certainly our childhood and life experiences play a role in our ability to express gratitude. And so we may have to overcome some of these roadblocks to be able to start the gratitude practice. But just because you're here, I know that you have shown an interest in this, and this is something that you're probably thinking would be helpful to include in your daily practice. And so I hope that we give you some good practical tools and inspiration for doing this work. So gratitude matters. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. And so I mentioned that scarcity mindset at the beginning of the presentation. And really, the scarcity mindset is that everything is a competition, that everything is, you know, is kind of a piece of a pie, right? That there is a finite amount of pie and we can only cut so many slices. Y'all think back to math class in elementary school. They were always having us, you know, divide food to learn our fractions. And I think that's, you know, that's reflective of our culture of, you know, we're going to divide this out and only so many people can get a slice of it. And that is sort of really reflective of our scarcity mindset, that there's not always enough to go around. And an abundance mindset is really that there's plenty of resources out there, but we just have to be willing to look for those. And I'm not talking about the widespread poverty that we see. There's certainly a lot of social justice issues going on in the world, and I want to be really sensitive to that. But for most of us on this call today, we can be really, more abundant in our mindsets because we do have a level of access and privilege and resources that others don't have. And so I'm thinking more in terms of that. So it's back to control what you can control and don't give away your power. And your power really resides in your response and in your mindset. So when we grow gratitude, it's important that we prepare by knowing what it is we want out of the gratitude practice. And so when we're setting goals, when we're thinking about the future as we're coming up on the end of this year, we really want to prepare ourselves and our minds and our hearts to be able to work toward the goals that we have. And that might be that we're more grateful people. We're going to plant those things. We're going to prune and tend and nurture these goals and these qualities and these habits that we want. We're going to practice patience because when we're waiting for something to grow, we don't have control over how much the plant grows or how much the gratitude grows. We don't have control over that, but we can do the things like watering it and tending it and nurturing it and taking care of it. And then we have to wait for that seed to develop. And so we really have to think about patience in that process. And then once we actually are reaping the harvest of what we've planted, we want to pay it forward. We want to think about sharing our gratitude and our gratitude practice with others and letting them know how it's benefited us. And so you can apply this to any aspect of your life. The gratitude game, I think this is something that's really fun for families, although I think it's fun for adults too, is to just name someone you're thankful for, name a place, a food, a thing, or just something of your choosing. This is something that you can do as a family when you're gathering for Thanksgiving. If you're doing that this year, this could be something that you do with family or friends or children. But, keeping in mind that gratitude isn't just reserved for Thanksgiving and that we can really start to think about making this a fun part of our lives. And I want to say that gratitude changes everything. During some really stressful times in my life and different challenges that I've had, I've learned that gratitude will help lay the foundation for the work that we do, whether it's working on habit change or wellness, or whether it's working on different habits that we want to create or professional goals. When we show gratitude, it starts to change the things that we know to be true. It starts to change our approach to how we interact with people. When we assume the best about people and we're grateful for what they contribute, that certainly changes our mindset. And that's something that we talk about in life and health coaching all the time, is when we start to change our thoughts about our circumstances, those thoughts will help us change our actions and our beliefs and our feelings. And that is going to change the action that we take. And that action will actually change the result. And so it's not that the circumstance changes, it's really that our thought about our circumstance changed. And practicing gratitude can help us do that. So some recommended reading that I like to share with y'all are these 3 books. It's called Choosing Gratitude, Learning to Love the Life You Have, The Little Book of Gratitude, Create a Life of Happiness and Well-being by Giving Thanks, and then Choosing Gratitude, Your Journey to Joy. All 3 of these are really great reads and would be quick and easy for you to access. All available at your local bookstore or on Amazon. And they give you some inspiration for how you start to incorporate gratitude. So it might be that you send a letter or an email this afternoon. It might be that you do something for Veterans Day this week on Thursday. Maybe you do a donation drive or contribute to something going on in programming. Maybe it's that you have a gratitude practice at Thanksgiving and you let everyone go around the table and share something that they're grateful for. Those are little ways that you can start to incorporate this into your everyday lives. So some resources that I want to share with you. There is a TED Talk on mindset by Carol Dweck. She is a clinical psychologist that has spent much of her work on the power of mindset. She has a book, she has this TED Talk, and just over 10 minutes, it's a great way to start thinking about how you think and how you approach your life. And so highly recommend her talk. Her TED Talk on how to make stress your friend is Kelly McConigal's work on clinical psychology and health psychology, health behavioral psychology. She talks about stress and how our response to stress is actually more harmful and more powerful than the stress itself. So if we think that stress is bad for us, in air quotes, bad, then we're going to have more of the detrimental effects of that stress than we would if we thought about stress as being something that's kind of neutral and necessary. So an affirmation that I like to share is I'm grateful. Gratitude is a prerequisite to happiness. And so you can read this, and this is something you could start your morning practice with. When what I have now is enough, it becomes more than enough, and I open myself up to receive more. I am grateful for the ups and downs. Everything has contributed to who I am. Today, I express gratitude for it all. And I love this because when we think about experiences that we've had, Dr. Edie Wadsworth is someone who's a social media influencer. She's written a book, a spiritual memoir called All the Pretty Things, and she talks about treasure hunting in our past. So she had a really traumatic childhood, and she went on to medical school and have some challenges in her early adult years. And so when she wrote this memoir, it was really a part of her therapy, her kind of therapeutic processing of her life experiences. And she talks about kind of treasure hunting in her past. And so this is a gratitude practice that she didn't call it that, but that's exactly what she was doing. She's like, I went back and looked at my life, and I looked at the hardships that I went through. And when I was looking at the things that were challenges and traumas, instead of looking at them as, something happening to me, I looked at it as something happening for me. And how did that grow me? And how grateful for, the people in my lives, the teachers, the coaches and things, that were there to help me when I needed the help and were there to guide me and teach me. And so she said, I went treasure hunting in my past for all of the things that helped me be who I am today. So that's something that I would really encourage, is we all can take those moments to think about where are the treasures in our past and in those struggles. And I'm sure that most of us probably could come up with a list of things that have been impactful. So gratitude prompts, these are some things that you could use if you do want to journal. Again, you don't have to buy a fancy journal. It could be something as simple as putting it in the Notes app on your phone, but you could write down what you love, what's made you smile, things that you're good at doing, the things that are bringing you joy, favorite memories, favorite food, all of the things that really kind of make you you, that make you who you are. What inspires you? What, prompted you to join the call today? Those are all things you can think about. These are also some, tools that you can use. You're welcome to grab these if you would like. We can send this presentation out for you. And so you can download these and use them to write down an act of kindness that you want to do or gratitude that you want to track. And I love making things fun and functional, but it's also nice when they're, aesthetically pleasing and fun to do. And so these are some resources that you could also grab as well. And then when we think about, our goals and we think about growing, which is what Wellbama is all about, it's about giving you the tools to equip you to make good, healthy, lasting, sustainable changes. We think about, goals as grow what matters one step at a time, little by little, your steps will add up. And Laura Casey is a goal setter influencer, and she talks about it's okay to grow slow. And something that I really have found impactful that I share with clients and patients and my students is that small progress is still progress. It all adds up. And so just take the next right step, and sometimes it's just baby steps to just making a change, choosing a different mindset, And it's not that you're going to automatically wake up tomorrow and decide, I'm just going to choose joy. I'm going to just choose to be grateful. But it's really coaching yourself that when you have a thought that's unhelpful, that you say, okay, is this helping me right now? Is this serving me? And if it isn't, then you have the choice. You have the responsibility to say, okay, I would rather choose this response instead. And that's something that you really have to work at. It's something that doesn't come naturally to us as humans, but it's something you definitely can cultivate over time. And then this is something that Laura Casey also uses with her company, something that I really resonate with. And she's talking about peonies. And peonies are really a hardy flower that, grows in the dirt. And, it's a hardy plant that, withstands a lot of struggle and challenge. It will withstand cold. And it's something that it requires a lot of tending and care, but it's also hardy at the same time. And she talks about really believing in an intentional life as possible, and that we don't have to be perfect, that we can have a life-giving life, that we can be in a simple life and cultivating what matters, which is going to be different for all of us. We can do that really well if we're intentional and if we choose to work on growing and blooming where we're planted. And that really resonated with me as a nurse educator, because there's a educational principle that says we should bloom where we're planted, meaning that, we may not be where we want to be right now, but we're where we are, right? We're present where our feet are, and we're going to bloom and do our very best where we are with what we have. And we're going to make as much change as we can, as we want to, as we move forward. And I think that's really important to remember, that we're not always where we want to be, and things are not always 100% positive, and it's not 100% perfect all the time, but we can still do a lot of good where we are, and we can still be grateful. And so these are our social media platforms. We would love for you to follow these platforms. For us, we've got a blog and Instagram and Facebook and website, and Miranda and Ashley do an amazing job of managing these sites for us. We also have a life and health coaching opportunity available. So if you'd like life or health coaching, then I would invite you to reach out. I can do that for free for you as part of our wellness programming. This is a free benefit as your, employment benefit. So definitely reach out if you're interested in that. And we are going to go to the chat and take some questions. So let me just go here. Yes, Marina, thank you for sharing the Random Acts of Kindness page. Yes, Laura, I'm glad you liked the TED Talk by Kelly. I'm glad y'all like the presentation. Great. Do y'all have any other questions or comments? We can talk a little bit more through some of the topics that you may be interested in. I wanted to leave time to be able to have that conversation with you. Yes, Gwendolyn, I love TED Talks. They are really helpful. Feel free to type in the chat if y'all have any questions or comments. Yes, we will definitely share the slides. And I'm actually going to go ahead and pause the recording. I want to thank y'all all for attending. We'll pause that so we can just speak more freely.